if you find that you're offended by what's said, take a moment and think about it. Don't just immediately write it off, because those kinds of what they're telling you, if their heart is genuinely in the right place, can be very helpful and can really help you. It's helped me. It's helped other people that I've known, and and yeah, and especially you just have to find a reason to go on, because there's life is precious, and there's people that wish they had the opportunities that you might have, or and so forth. But definitely, always, definitely, if a person definitely wants to help you, try to at least consider what they're saying, because it might actually help you.
All right. Well, I appreciate having Brother Klein with us to be a part of this. I needed someone to talk with me about some stuff that was presented to us. I've asked people to give to us, submit things. So one of the things submitted since the last video is one of the men in our church heard what I said about not being able to find Christian songs that were worth reacting to because it's just repeating the same things over and over. So he found one and he sent it to me. And this one I think probably is worth reacting to. So for anybody who does, because I'm not going to go listen to contemporary songs, and I gave up, I went to the charts for the top 5 Christian songs at the time. Obviously, they're going to be contemporary, Hillsong, that kind of stuff, because that's what the charts are checking and that's what people are buying. But I went through those songs and I couldn't find anything worth reacting to, because the amount of content in each song, the whole song, is less than what's in one verse and a chorus of any song in a hymnal. The number of words and lines and so forth, because they just repeat the same thing. Each verse is just repeating the same thing 5 times. It's one line repeated over and over, and then the chorus is the same thing over and over. So by the end, and they're so vague and so harmless in terms of not having anything, no information whatsoever, nothing to help you, nothing to hurt you, that there's really nothing there. So I found that I couldn't react to those. But thankfully, Stefania, one of the men there in the church, gave me this. I had not heard of this artist before. Admittedly, the period in my Christian life where I was experimenting with contemporary music when I was younger and just got saved and was just starting to learn things. At that point, a lot of these crazier things that are out there today weren't there, and a lot of your newer artists obviously weren't there because it was a long time ago. So I know some of your older artists. I know some of the stuff from back then, but the stuff from now, I don't really know as much about it. So for me, I'm not surprised by what we're getting ready to react to, but it is still new to me. So before I get started, Brother Klein, I know you're a huge fan of contemporary music, and I'm just joking. Don't get offended. Don't disconnect or anything.
I'll be all right.
Okay. Yeah. Now, have you ever heard of someone called Semler?
I can't say I have. I've heard of some of the more popular ones, I guess you could say. But I don't know. Maybe Semler is really popular now. I don't know.
I don't think they're popular as much as controversial.
Okay.
I'll explain to you why in just a moment. I guess probably a better place to start my question would be what experience do you have with contemporary music? I personally, I had a phase where when I first got saved and preachers were preaching against it, but nobody was giving reasons why they were against it. It kind of stirred something in me. It's like, okay, why? So I began to ask questions about it, and then because nobody would give me answers that really satisfied me, I started experimenting with it myself, and eventually I came to my own conclusions as to why I was against it.
Right. So I guess I've heard of ones like Amy Grant's, like the old ones like DC Talk and different ones I've heard of, and I've also like looked them up to see what they're all about, and to say like there are some that have really good words to them and stuff like that. There's some like group called Casting Crowns and other ones. You've heard of Mercy Me. The only song I've ever heard from them is called I Can Only Imagine, which I think they made a whole movie and all that stuff about it. But those are the ones I'm more familiar with. I don't typically take a lot of time to go search out contemporary artists. So
I haven't for a long time either. Exposure. No, Casting Crowns, I'm glad you mentioned, because they are in terms of lyrics, they're the exception to the rule, and there's a good reason for it, because you can actually figure out which Bible verse they got their music from. Almost
Yeah.
because again, like I said, I had a phase where I got pretty big into it early in my Christian life, and so with them, you can figure out where they got their song from, because it's usually quoted even a lot of times the verse they got it from, or there's
Hmm.
it's at least paraphrased.
Yeah.
However, I give my opinion on this. People can take it or leave it. For me, even with that, I have my issue because it is a gateway into the rest of this, and that's what I find with contemporary music. It's a very broad spectrum, and so way, way, way over to the good side, you'll find something like a Casting Crown. And in truth, like if you get into Mercy Me, there's a reason why you only heard one song of theirs, because there's only one that's remotely worth talking about. But with any of them, Third Day, I think, was the other that was popular, like a contemporary of
Yeah, I've
Casting
heard of them.
Crown.
I've heard of them too.
They
Yeah,
had
I
some good
don't.
lyrics and stuff to theirs as well. But with those the thing with anything like that, it's like drugs. It's like anything. There's always that first one that's not so bad, so it makes you let your guard down once you go into it. Something begins to stir in your heart, and you feel pressure to go further.
Hmm.
And the reason I believe that, and I'm just going to give this for anybody who wants to know why I have issue with contemporary music and why I'm going to say what I have to say today. I'm going to try to make it simple, because it's actually a long message if I preach the whole thing. Is that in my study of it, my personal the book of Ecclesiastes like investigation, where I poured my life into this for a little while and figured it out myself. What I came to the conclusion of is that all music feeds you in one of three parts of who you are. You are a body, a soul, and a spirit. All music is going to appeal primarily to one of those three parts. If music makes you want to get up and dance or move around, then it's appealing to your body. If it's making you cry and appealing to your heart and your emotions or those kind of things, that's speaking to your soul. If it's doing something else that's a little bit harder to explain, and it's stirring something much deeper down inside of you, then it's speaking to your spirit. And I know some people don't like the idea that there's a such thing as spiritual songs, but the Bible says, speaking to yourselves in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs. So
Yeah.
music can have a very spiritual melody.
Yeah.
And as
And
Christians, I'm sorry.
uh, I was just gonna say, like I also noticed that like some of the music I mentioned about DC Talk. So, yeah, I'd heard about the song called "Jesus Freak," and I looked it up to see what it was all about, and it seemed like it was more of a ripoff of like what was rock music of that day. And there's actually a famous statement that says, you're not making Christianity better. You're making rock music worse."
Mhm.
But you know, and I know I might offend some people by saying that about DC Talk, but that was just
That's okay.
my
You can do it here.
experience with that. What?
You can do it here. You're welcome to
Oh,
do it on
okay,
my channel.
okay,
But no, what I say about it is, I agree with you. What I say about it, because I'll even come to my opinion on that as well, is that all music is going to feed you one place or another. So if it's appealing to your body or your soul, it's feeding you carnally. If it's just feeding your spirit, it's feeding you spiritually. So as Christians, we should choose what's good for us, not just what is allowed or so forth, but what is good for us. That should always be the goal. And certainly in a church, everything should be spiritually focused. So the reason why I'm against contemporary music really comes down to the fact that all contemporary music is taking, and this is where I say I'll speak to the same thing you're talking about. All contemporary music is taking some music that the world has developed that's meant to speak to the soul or the body, but to speak to your flesh in some way, and it's just painting over it with Christian words. So, for example, even Casting Crowns, it's straightforward rock music. It's soft rock music painted over top of with lyrics from the Bible. So even the best you'll find is just soft rock music painted over with Christian lyrics. Southern gospel music is just literally country music. Sometimes you'll hear the same melody of a country song that you'll hear in that. And it's hard to know who stole from who, because it goes both ways. They steal from each other.
yeah,
But it's just country music that somebody painted over top of it. It's still the same bones, same structure. And the melody and the composition of the music is different. When you talk about a spiritual song, the way it speaks to you is very different. Spiritual songs will typically induce peace and things that help you. And really, it's like classical music, in all honesty, is composed in the way a spiritual song should be composed. That's why you notice classical music and hymns have a very similar structure a lot of times.
Mm.
Because, and there's a reason why most people recommend, like if you listen to classical music while you're studying or something, it actually helps you. It will help you to be more focused. It pushes you to be more intelligent while doing this. So my point, or at least what I'm trying to say about this, is that all music's going to affect you in some way. It's going to be either sharpening you and helping you to focus, or it's going to be distracting you and doling you down. It's going to be speaking to your spirit, or it's going to be speaking to you carnally. And contemporary music, Christian rock, Christian rap, Southern gospel, all of that is speaking to you carnally and it's doling you down. Whereas, to be honest with you, you'd be better off to listen to classical music than any of that. And I know that I've already lost 1,000 people because they don't care because I say classical music. It doesn't matter that there was logic behind what I said. But classical music would actually help you more than that would, because at least it would put you in a good place spiritually and a good place mentally to be able to be focused on the Word of God and so forth. But that's my reasoning. So for anybody who doesn't know what I believe on this, who wants to know why I'm against contemporary music as a broad statement, is because of that. It's because Christians should be looking to not emulate the world, but to take what is good for them and what's best for them. Now, that's my opinion. I asked Brother Klein to talk with me about this because I assume he's on a similar page and he won't be offended by that statement. So
Yeah. Well, and again, my opinion of that is more or less based on the whole idea of trying to be hashtag relevant, and like a lot of churches do. And again, there's nothing wrong with as far as new songs. I've written several songs, and I don't know if they're published worthy or anything like that, but yeah, the whole idea of trying to use it as trying to just be more like the world, so that the world will love us, or whatever the term is, and it just kind of dulls down the things of God to where it's more or less just a show. If we were to take away the music and the lights and the fog, the smog thingy, whatever they put on the stage and all that, it really doesn't. What's left, and what are people going to care after that? And I know their usual thing is, well, we got to reach as many people as we can, and so I don't know. I guess that's a tough argument to give to them, especially when that's their focus, is to try to appeal to the majorities. But again, it's still like that's a fine line that you have to be very careful with.
I appreciate one thing you mentioned there too, and I'll say this before we get into our actual reaction. I appreciate that you mentioned the fact that just because something's new is not why I'm against it. It's not about being new. It's about emulating some worldly music, trying to imitate that and
Right.
pull from what they have to try to, mix that with Christianity. Because, for example, some of the best songs I can give you right now would be Ron Hamilton. I understand Ron Hamilton is not new. I mean, it hasn't come out in the past year or so, but compared to the hymns we sing that are 100 years old and more, Ron Hamilton would be new music. But Ron Hamilton's some of the best music I could give you right now. And there's other examples. There's other people who are writing good music, but he's just somebody I really appreciate. His music has that, what I'm talking about, that it really is spiritually driven. So anyway, saying that, I appreciate you point out that it's not that we're against new music. It's against music that is taking the world's structure, the world's skeleton, and then pasting over top of it Christian things, hoping that'll somehow work. All right, so back to Semler, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. I didn't look at something, so if somebody's laughing at me because up to this point I've said the name wrong, I'm just reading it the way it's written. I mean, I can't help if they write it and say it some other way. Her name is Grace Baldridge, so I'll bring her up on the screen for you. Grace Baldridge, Semler. The quote I have there is from one of her earlier songs. She is famous, and this is why I wanted to react to it. She is famous because earlier in 2021, still hard to remember that's last year, not this year anymore, but about a year ago, she became the first openly homosexual singer to make her way onto the iTunes charts, I believe was what it was. The first openly homosexual singer to make her way onto the iTunes. Let me see if I'm getting this right. Land atop the iTunes Christian album charts. Yeah, I was making sure I was saying it correctly. But she was the first openly gay singer to do that. So she grew up, according to this, and that's why I pulled this quote to bring into it. It says, I grew up a preacher's kid cleaning up after communion, so I know that a church is not a way to live, it's weekly reunion. That's a line from a song, Texas Sunday or something like that.
Mm.
But that if that statement is a statement of experience, which is what I understand it to be, then that means she grew up as a preacher's kid. At some point in her life, she became a homosexual. And then she still decided that she wanted to stay a part of Christianity, wanted to be part of it all. And even as I read some of the quotes doesn't even feel like she's actually really part of Christianity as much as she's trying to, teach them a lesson and bring them down sometimes, because she was saying
Right.
being included in the charts didn't feel like being included as much as it felt like being an intruder.
Mm.
But the statement, I'm not entirely going to attack the statement of, I grew up a preacher's kid cleaning up after communion, so I know that church is not a way to live, it's a weekly reunion. I'm not going to entirely attack that statement, because there's a little bit of truth to the idea that some people,
Oh, yeah.
church is not a way of life. It's, it's just a social gathering.
Right.
But that's the kind of churches we're preaching against. That's the kind of churches we're trying to help get. That's what the contemporary movement breeds and creates, because you're not trying to help people spiritually. You're trying to appeal to the social side of it and to the physical side, the carnal side, and so forth. So yeah, that's Semler for you. I didn't know if you knew who she was, but that's your background information on who you're going to be reacting to today.
Okay. Yeah, never heard of. So her name is Grace Baldridge, and she also go by Semler?
Yes,
Or is
her
that
actual name is Grace Baldridge, but her stage
okay?
name is Semler.
Yeah, I don't know either of those people. So, yeah.
So I'll start off by let me just give a statement for anybody who doesn't know me or know how I do stuff. I'm not attacking because I just have something out, because I'm looking for any little thing. That's one reason I'm not probably a good person to do some of this reaction stuff, because I don't just look for any little thing to complain about. That's why I say I can actually understand these lyrics, and I'm not against actually that statement, because there's a truth that a lot of churches are that way.
Mm-hmm.
Where I start to see a little bit of the fact that you can see this is not a spiritually driven performer. This is someone who's speaking about their experiences and wants Christians to listen, whether they should or not. Is when you get into the song that actually, as far as I understand, this is the one that landed her on the iTunes charts. It's called "I'd Rather Be a Ghost." So here's your song you're going to be reacting to now.
Okay.
The song "I'd Rather Be a Ghost" starts with verse 1. I don't want to be here, but I don't want to die. I don't like the body you see me inside. Now, let me point out for you that most people understand this as being someone who I don't know that this is a transgender artist. I was told it's a woman and she's a lesbian. I didn't do any more research than that. Maybe I should have, but I understand from most people's interpretation of the song, they interpret it as either her speaking on behalf of, or maybe it's someone who's transgender. I don't know. But speaking on behalf of transgender people is what the song is really supposed to be. That's why I don't like the body you see me inside, is what I understand that line's supposed to be about. I'd rather be a ghost that everyone could see, a phantom and a friend whenever you need. I wouldn't have to sweat or find a fitting room or go through TSA to fly and see you. I should also note for you, because I do know a little bit of where this song is going, even though I tried not to read the lyrics as I was making the slides, that this song seems to be more about a relationship with somebody than it actually has to do with God. So when I'd rather see you, it's not talking about God. She's not talking about getting on the airplane to go see God. It's about going to see her girlfriend, I guess.
Interesting.
But,
yeah.
So here's our lyrics to be looking at, trying to dissect this and figure out where this is going.
Yeah. I guess it's a lot of thing with, as you pointed out, vague lyrics is trying to, which I don't know, are they vague or are they deep? It's hard to really tell. They're obviously trying to get a message through. I don't want to be here, but I don't want to die. I don't like the body you see me inside. I'd rather be a ghost that everyone could see, a phantom and a friend whenever you need. I wouldn't have to sweat or find a fitting room or go through a TSA to fly and see you. Yeah, I guess if that truly is about transgenderism, or I don't know, it depends on, are they talking about the fact that they don't fit in with people? Are they talking about their body or whatever? It's an interesting idea because regardless, a lot of people sometimes feel that way when it comes to society. They don't want to, they'd rather be a ghost or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what to say about that. Yeah,
Well, I mean, I can break it down this much that if even if it's not transgender, it is somebody who's speaking from a place that they're not happy with their body.
right.
Now,
Yeah,
I'm not going to be rude with what I'm about to say. I'm overweight, so of course I'm not happy with everything about my body. You have health issues, so I know you're not happy with everything about your body.
no,
Nobody is.
right.
But I'm going to be a little bit crude. Normally, I try to be quite nice and respectful, but I'm actually going to be a little bit crude on this one. If she has problems with herself, and as I understand, that's a picture of her. I mean, that's the picture that was used in all the articles I saw. So,
Hmm.
uh, if you have a problem, she's the one who's making choices to appear the way she does for the most part. She seems to be a normal
Right.
appearing person aside from personal choices. I don't imagine somebody held her down and shaved her head to make her look more masculine. I don't imagine anybody strapped her to the chair and put the tattoos on her arms.
Hmm.
I I understand that those are choices she's made, and maybe in her mind, those are the choices that make her think she feels more happy about her body.
Right. Yeah,
But
that's what I was
if we're
thinking.
going
Actually.
if we're going to be honest, that sense of rebellion where you feel like you have to rebel against who you are, which this does speak to the idea of transgender, that sense of rebellion that you have to try to change who you are. I have to cut my hair. I have to do this and these things to try to appear completely different. I have to. It shows you that there's something deeply wrong and deeply disturbed inside.
Yeah.
Um, and that's like, I mean, with transgender, I know it's unpopular. You can get in a lot of trouble for saying it right now. But the truth is, what people who are transgender, anybody need to understand, and what we as a society need to understand about people who are so, is we're not helping them or doing them favors by pretending like there's nothing wrong. Somebody
Right.
who deeply hates their body and feels like they need to rebel against it, that they need to do things to disfigure themselves in some way, there's an issue there that needs to be addressed. And
Right.
then when they write it as poetry and put it as songs and so forth to put it out there for us, you see that this is somebody who essentially is saying, I hate my body so much, I'd rather be dead. I'd rather be a
Right.
ghost. I still want people to see me, but I'd rather be a ghost and not be in my body. Uh, you don't have to find a fitting room. So that speaks to the idea. I mean, someone who's overweight and so forth, I understand that there's issues there. They don't like the way they look in clothes and that kind of stuff. I get where that's
Hmm.
going.
Yeah.
I don't. I wouldn't have to sweat. I sweat profusely. I look at work and I sweat,
Yeah.
uh,
Right.
and so I understand that one. I get those things. Where you start to see though that this is not even a cry for help as much as it is just someone who has a lot of emotional and psychological problems that they don't really want to address is when you realize that this is actually a love song, so to speak. It's a romantic song being written, and it's not about God, but yet it's being marketed to Christians.
Mm.
That's where you
Right.
begin to realize that it's not what it appears to be on the surface. So when she says I or go through TSA to fly and see you, that's where you begin to see it's about something else. Because, like I say, as far as I can tell by the lyrics, this is written to another person. But Christians are supposed to pay for it because we need to make money. So,
Right.
all right, here's your second verse in your chorus. Your chorus is, "What's a body but a cage that keeps me weak? It keeps me strange."
Mm.
So it's still the same idea. You feel weak, you feel strange in your body, you feel weak in the sense that without it, you wouldn't have all the aches and pains and so forth. I understand those lyrics. I'm not here just to be critical for no reason.
Right.
Um, what's a body but a cage? This shows you two different mentalities. The Bible answer of what is a body is it's a temple, it's a tabernacle, not a,
Right.
but their idea is it's a cage, which means they don't see the value in this life. They don't see the value of being here. They see the value in this person, whoever it is, but they don't see the value in life and being here.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. What's the body? It's the cage. Well, yeah, and that's the difference between looking at your body in if I could say, a harmful way, and instead of a respectful way. As you said, the Bible says that our body is the temple of the Lord. Therefore, we should take care of our bodies. But so often, people do all sorts of harm to their bodies. They're ingesting different drugs and alcohol and cutting their bodies with all these different tattoos and things like that, instead of trying to preserve their bodies to be something that God would be pleased with. And I don't know, it's I don't want to be here. I don't want to be seen. I'd feel so much better as a ghost under a sheet. And yeah, and also, obviously you don't want to be in the opposite respect to where you think you're the best thing that there's ever been, but you also don't want to be the kind that thinks, oh goodness, my body, it's, I'd rather not even be here, so to speak.
Well, as someone who's obviously depressed, I mean, someone who's obviously, I mean, I don't know anything about the person, but if these lyrics are coming from their heart and they mean anything to them at all, if it's not just them speculating at what somebody else feels like, then
Hmm.
this is that statement, "What's a body but a cage," really speaks to me more than anything about this song because it shows
Right.
you the very misshapen view of the world. How,
Right. Well, yeah, and I
my view is.
understand. Okay, sorry, good.
No, I was just
Yeah,
saying, my view of life is that life is precious, and so even though that's why, like, I used to be bigger, but I lost weight. I still need to go back into losing weight again, but I realize my life is precious. I don't have a lot of time here. I need to serve God. I need to take care of things. I have a family. I need to do stuff for them. Whereas
yeah,
someone who says, "What's a body but a cage?" It shows you a even a potential suicidal nature within that person. Where because I view my body as something precious to be taken care of, they
right.
view their body as something that's holding them back, and they wish they could be free from it.
Yeah, and what I was going to say is I can relate to the fact that the body is like a cage that keeps me weak. Believe me, I know all about having a body that's constantly weak, especially when I was on dialysis and things like that. That was
Mhm.
obviously something that I was like, I I just want to be healthy. I want to feel better, but you don't want to get to the place where you feel like you're not your body's not worth anything. That's not a way to live. That's barely surviving. If you don't have some sort of hope to keep you going. Obviously, the Word of God is what you should turn to. I remember Philippians chapter 4 talking about what's everything pure, what's everything are right, all those different things. To
Mhm.
give you that encouragement from the Word of God, not to think of your body as just a cage or something that keeps you weak and giving you this desire that you don't want to be here. Because you can feel that way, especially if you aren't happy with your body or or feel sick or weak and things like that. So these are things that I can relate to, but I also understand that you got to get away from that. You got to try to live for something more than just your body. Something more than just, well, obviously they want to be a ghost, but you want to live for something more than that. And that's where God comes in. That's where his word comes in to give you that peace in your heart so that you're not just thinking about this life as being something that's meaningless and hopeless and strange, as they put it.
No, I agree with you completely. It really shows you the issue of somebody who. Now, I'm not going to try to speculate on somebody's salvation. Obviously, somebody who professes to be a homosexual, I don't believe that person's saved. I believe it's possible you could be tempted in that way, but somebody who chooses to go full blown into that life and identify with it, I'm going to have a hard time with believing that. Now, I'm not here to speculate on that, though, but my point is, even if I knew nothing about the writer, if I just read these words and was told this was written by a Christian, I would realize that this is someone who, best case scenario, is a Christian who was very far outside the will of God and really has no good relationship with God. Like, I mean, they're not in His Word, they're not spending time with Him, and so they've gotten to a place of depression and they're seeing their body as a weakness, and they don't like the way they look, they don't like themselves, and they're just depressed. And that's
Right.
really it. Is to me, this song is a cry for help. And I
Right.
think in truth, it's intended to be that way. As I understand it, actually, almost all of her songs are a cry for help or condemning certain things that they don't like within the Christian church. But that's what bothers me, I think, about the fact that this is the song that made its way to the charts, that it became a popular song.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. It became really popular, and specifically amongst Christians. I don't know if she had any mainstream success from this song or not, but if Christians are listening to this and relating to it, that's certainly something that's a problem with Christianity in general. Is that people that are professing Christ are having this feeling as though life is not worth living.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's concerning. That's concerning. As Christians, we should be living in victory. And believe me, again, I know what it feels like to feel defeated and feel like you've messed up for the 50th time, where your body relapses, or I'm speaking more particularly in my health, but it's strange to me that people who profess Christ would relate to this in such a way that it's like life is just this thing that doesn't matter. And that's very concerning that Christians relate to that. And I've heard some say, well, now Christians are finally being honest. Before we were lying and stuff like that, which I don't know. I don't know. I mean, my parents went through a lot of stuff. I've known other people that have been through stuff, and they found victory. They found peace through God. And why should I feel as though they were faking it all that time? That I generally believe that they came through those things, and at the end of the day, they if they weren't being as honest, they still had a better quality of life. They weren't trying to harm themselves. They weren't trying to do these things that so many within Christendom are trying to do today, which is, um, you know, just unfortunate. Showing this side of depression to where it's crippling, where God can't do anything about it. God can't get past my anxiety or my depression or whatever I'm dealing with. And again, that's not to dilute or diminish what they've been through, but at the same time, we have victory through God. So why can't we find peace with God? That's
No, I agree with you completely. And actually, I'm really enjoying to see where this is going the more I think about it. I mean, where the conversation is going, because this is symptomatic of exactly what we talked about in the beginning. That when you replace helping people spiritually with just trying to make them feel good, life is not always going to be good and people are not always going to feel good. And
right.
so what happens is you breed this brand of Christianity where all these people are taught that, well, God just wants you to be happy and you should feel good, and you pump them up on sugar and you never give them anything of sustenance, and
Right.
then you send them out into the world, and the world's not as nice and friendly, as sweet as they were told it was going to be. So then they wind up being miserable, and many times you're not bringing people to a saving knowledge of Christ, and when you do, you're also still not bringing them to a relationship with Christ.
Mm.
And so, like everybody I know who's into contemporary church, contemporary movements, and so forth, their idea of a relationship with Christ is that I sing songs that make me feel warm and fuzzy inside when I'm at church. And that's
Mm.
really about the extent of it. Or I have Bible verses that I like because they make me feel good. It's
Mm.
not really about actually cultivating a real and healthy relationship with God. And
Right.
this is the product. This is what happens when you do that.
Right. In fact, actually, I'd been studying in the book of Galatians recently, where Paul was talking to them because so many of the Galatians were being so, as he put it, so soon removed from what they were taught. They were taught to follow the Spirit, and they'd been influenced by the Judaizers and all these other different people who were trying to put something else on top of grace. And instead of following the Spirit, they were following the flesh, and you can only follow the flesh so long before it just breeds, more sin, more flesh. And that's what he kept saying all through that book: walk in the Spirit, and will not fulfill the desires of the flesh. And we have a modern day Christianity that is so uh, flesh carnally based that the Spirit of God has no place in our lives. And again, very very unfortunate to see that happening.
Yeah, I agree. That's what Christianity. That's what modern Christianity has become. It's not about a relationship with God. It's about feeling better. It's the. I guess to me, not the. It's not irony. It's just the sadness, I guess, of the fact that she feels like she has to attack the version of Christianity where it is a social gathering, where it is about making yourself happy,
Right.
is that that's also the version of Christianity that she's marketing herself to and identifying with. And the part, if she comes and sat down in my church, she would get mad and leave because I would preach against
Right.
homosexuality or these kind of things. So the
Mm.
one who's actually trying to help her, she despises. And then the one who she likes makes her feel suicidal.
Right.
Think about that. I don't want to laugh at somebody's plight, but
No, absolutely
that's
not.
there's something wrong there. So there's
Yeah.
something wrong in your heart and something wrong in your head at that part,
Right.
at
And
that
and,
point.
and I guess that's kind of what you're seeing with a lot of the happy-go-lucky churches. Not to say that Williams Baptist can't be happy or anything like that. sometimes we get the
Mhm.
we get people thinking that we're not never happier, um, but yeah, they come from these happy-go-lucky churches, which try to make it seem that we've got to work up our happiness, and there's no happiness. There's always happy, 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 and they realize reality tells them differently, and so they're going back and saying, no, no, there's real problems, and there's real this, and there's real that, and those are genuine criticisms for sure, that but they're looking at it in the most negative and unsettling way possible, instead of actually trying to see, well, what is my genuine problem, what can God do to help me through this. As opposed to trying to do that, they're trying to go in a completely different direction, as opposed to what they've been maybe raised with, and things like that.
Yeah, I think you said it well with that. Let me. I didn't think I read the second verse is actually only 3 lines. It's I don't want to be here. I don't want to be seen. Which let me go back and check. I think it's a contradiction to what was in the first one. Uh, I'd rather be a ghost that everyone could see. So
Hmm. Well, she
she wants
says
to
in the
be.
first line, "I don't want to be here, but I don't want to die." I guess
Uh,
it's more like the idea of everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die yet.
uh. But I was just noticing the first verse is she wants to be a ghost that can be seen, but now she doesn't want to be seen. So
Right,
it does show. To me, that just it's really about the confusion of it all. The fact that you
right,
want one thing but you're chasing another,
right.
which really speaks to the issue. They want a relationship with God, they think, but they don't actually want a relationship with God because it
Yeah,
means they have to give up certain things in their life. They have to
yeah,
turn to do it His way.
yeah. They want to go to heaven when they die, but they want to live like hell till they get there. If there's a way to look at it,
I'd feel so much better as a ghost under a sheet. So I all I can do is laugh at that one. There's nothing productive I'm going to say about that. So,
yeah,
all right, I'll go to the next verse. Let me be your ghost, dear. I'd haunt you so nice. What a heavenly way to spend an afterlife. I'm not at home here, honey. 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 This is where I say you really can see the song is actually not it's not about Christianity at all. It's about somebody who likes somebody. They don't like themselves, and they'd rather die and be a ghost so that they can haunt that person, but not have to deal with life. So really,
right,
what it's coming down to is they're saying the only thing in life that's worth being here for is you, and I would rather die and find a way I can still have you, but not have to deal with the rest of this. So it's
right.
actually this is where the truth is. It's even not about heaven. It's about
True.
wanting this
Yeah,
person without the problems of life.
yeah. They want to still be on Earth, but they don't want to be here at the same time. It's like a conglomeration of inconsistencies of the mind, where well, as you said at the beginning, I don't want to be here, but I don't want to die, but I also do want to die, but maybe if I died, things would be better, and so she's like, let me be your ghost, I can haunt you, and it'd be a great way to spend the afterlife, and I'm not here, and yeah, it's a lot of, I don't know, contradictory thoughts, which I
Mhm.
guess sort of, you know kind of goes with the what the Bible says about being unstable. Double-minded man is unstable in all his ways, and this seems to be what she's indicating. She's double-minded. Um, she doesn't want to be here. She doesn't want to be seen, but she wants to be seen. She doesn't want to die, but she wants to die. She wants to be with him, but she doesn't want to be here in this life. So it's yeah, it's a weird concept of thinking for sure.
Well, but I think you actually hit the nail on the head with it. A double-minded man. It's a double-minded thing that she wants someone, but she doesn't want the consequences and cost of it. It's, but I guess even what takes me a step further back away from it that does frustrate me is why is this song considered Christian?
Mm, yeah,
Because she's not singing about wanting to go to heaven. I mean, if so, why are you talking about? Why do you need the TSA? Why did you? Was the TSA was going on an airplane ever going to get you to God? It's not
right.
about heaven. And I'll let me be your ghost. I'll haunt you so nice. That's about a person.
Yeah,
This song has nothing to do with God whatsoever.
yeah,
This to me is where one of my grand issues with a lot of contemporary music comes in is when you actually look at it beyond the surface, it has almost nothing to do with God whatsoever,
Mm,
or it only has something to do with God if you interpret it that way. I remember one of the most famous songs. What was it, like Chariot? I think was the name of it. It was really, really famous. And you would hear it playing. Like I was in the grocery store, and the song would be
mm,
playing in the grocery store. And my best friend growing up, he had got into contemporary music. He never got saved, but he got into contemporary music.
mm,
And then, of course, I was saved and I was against contemporary music. And his brother was like anarchist, against Christianity, atheist, everything you can imagine, like
mm.
full, complete opposite of me.
Yeah.
That's what his brother was. And his brother was talking to him, and I was there, and he was explaining to his brother that he liked this song.
Mm,
And his brother like, oh yeah, I love that song too. He said, you love it, but it's about God. And he said, no, it's not. It's about the Son.
mm.
Uh, and they were having this argument about this supposedly Christian song about, is it singing about God or is it singing about the Son?
Uh,
And I just had to sit back and laugh because you couldn't tell him he was wrong unless you knew what the author of the song said, because
right.
nothing in the song said he was wrong. But,
Right. Yeah.
but
Is he talking about Jesus, or is he talking about his girlfriend, or is he talking, what's he talking about? Yeah. And that goes with the whole vagueness, or I guess attempt to be deep with these types of songs, is that, obviously in this way it seems as though it's speaking about a relationship with a person, but they could easily say, "Oh no, it's about God. I'm talking about God." Well,
if they,
yeah.
you're right, they could say that. But if they said that, I could pick that apart really fast. That there's no
Right.
way this can be about God. They wrote this because they like somebody. I'm going to guess that person probably doesn't like them back, and now they're suicidal and depressed about it. So they wrote a song. They have a name within the Christendom and the contemporary Christian movement. So let's make some money off of it while we're at it.
Yeah.
It's really what it boils down to. Now, what I'll give, though, I will give this. I'll give points where points are due. Either this person is really speaking from their heart, and this is truly how they feel, because they very much captured what I would think it's like inside of the mind of someone who is suicidal and transgender and all that kind of
Oh yeah.
stuff. Or they actually either this is from their heart and they're being honest, and this person needs help, or they did a really good job of capturing that if they're not actually speaking from their own personal point of view.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, and there's nothing wrong with honest music that talks about real life issues. That's not a bad thing, but especially when you're not really, there doesn't seem to be any, what's the word I'm looking for, uh, solution. If you look at like the song I heard, that the Christmas Bells by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, that's a very
Mhm.
honest song talking about the emotions that he's going through. And of course, it was originally a poem about the Civil War and losing his wife and his son
Mhm.
all the time. And he said, I, in despair, I bowed my head. There is no peace on earth, I said, for hate is strong. And then he goes on talking about how, like, there's no peace on earth. Where's the peace? And all that kind of stuff. But then he concludes, he says, you know, but then I realized God's not dead, nor doth he sleep.
Well,
And so there's a solution to it. But the song, which is intended, yes, to provoke the mind, maybe, or to be honest and relate to people that are in need. There's no solution. There's no idea that there's going to be any hope at the end of it. It's just, I don't want to be here. I want to be a ghost, uh, or whatever. So it's not really giving any definitive answer or hope to those that are listening to the song, which doesn't even, even some secular songs will do that, where they'll try to give some sort of, solution from the world's perspective, but there's none in this song.
actually, that's a really, really good point, because if you compare that, for example, to Psalms, and I really like the call out on "I Heard the Bells on Christmas Day," because especially like my people in our church will know that because we sing that song and I tell that story every year.
Mm,
So they'll really appreciate that one. But you think about Psalms, that's what Psalms is.
right.
A huge portion of the book of Psalms is, this is my problem, this is my concern, this is my heartache, this is my pain. It's very honest, very deep. Sometimes you can tell, like, the author is being overly dramatic, and they'll admit that. In the end, they'll admit that I was wrong.
Yeah.
And then they'll go back and praise God and give God the glory due. But for this to be a Christian song, if we want to not just react, but also to correct this song, if you want to make this a Christian song, there needs to be another verse in there that gives God the glory that's due his name. That I may feel broken, I may feel that my body's a cage, but in truth it's not, and God is worthy of praise.
Yeah.
And I actually am really glad you bring that out, because that, I think, shows more than anything what's wrong with what we call Christian music today. Is that it's so man focused, is so focused on pleasing man, appealing to man, expressing the ideas of man, that it has even that you as you say, you've wrote some songs. I've wrote a few. I know mine are not worthy of being published or anything, but I know a little bit about music, and I know that at the end of the day, my goal, if I'm a songwriter, shouldn't be to just get my opinions out there, but it should be to praise God.
Right.
And this song has nothing to offer to praise God. It's all somebody's sorrow. Uh, and it's fine. If you want to speak to Christians who are hurting, that's good. Somebody should speak to them. But the fact that you don't offer them any hope means that you don't have anything to offer them, that
Right.
your system of Christianity and your opinions there are failing. And at that point, maybe you're not the person to be speaking on this. If all you can do is address that there is a problem, then maybe you're not the one to be speaking on the subject.
Right. And I like how you mentioned the psalm, because you're very right. One of my favorite psalms to go to is Psalm 73, where he was talking about, I know the Lord is good, but my feet had well nigh slipped, and he goes through everything that had been going on in his mind about how the wicked were always seeming to win, and it was like we lived in vain for God. But then he saw their end when he went to the house of the Lord. And it shows this total transformation from somebody who was down and out and feeling so low, to finally saying, my only safety comes from God. And I've seen the end now of the wicked. I've seen what comes from having this attitude of being down and out, and realizing that my victory is in God. And again, that just kind of goes with what we're talking about, the idea that yeah, there has to be some sort of solution, some sort of answer. I mean, if a person that's feeling suicidal is hearing this, they're not going to be like, oh, yay, now I want to live. They'll just be like, yeah, somebody else feels the same way I do. And they're left with no sort of hope, no sort of solution to what they're feeling. And I don't know, that doesn't seem right to me in that way.
It's not helpful. All
No.
you do is make people feel justified in their sorrow,
Right.
which in truth allows them to feel more sorrowful. It allows
Right.
them to feel sorry for themselves.
Yes.
All right. Well, we actually went so long talking about this that this may actually be one whole video all by itself. Maybe I'll throw in a couple clips of Brother Branch that I got left over or something to give people a laugh. But this was such a good conversation. And I had such a good time talking with you about it that I didn't want to cut you off. It's every once in a while I get an interview or something that goes that way. I don't want to cut somebody off, so I just let it go.
Yeah.
But this was you did well with this. It was a good subject for you. I didn't really think about the fact that this would tie into some of the struggles that you've had and some of your friends and family that they were with. So you did a really good job bringing that out, and I appreciate you opening up and sharing about it. Do you have a podcast or anything like that?
I've talked about. There's this one I have on my YouTube channel called The Talk Show.
Mm-hmm.
I've only produced 2 episodes so far, but yeah, I've talked about just different struggles dealing with losing family, life changes, because life changes all the time. And I've seen a lot of that change in my own life with the fact that how one moment in life can change like the rest of your life, and especially when you do a lot of introspection and viewing life and stuff like that. Especially with I lost my parents over the past couple of years. I've had all these health issues and stuff like that. So I've tried to talk about that off and on. I can't say I've got a set scheduled thing where I've been doing it, but I do try to talk about it as much as possible, because I think it's important that we do talk about these things, but we talk about it in a respect that in my view, God is the solution to that. God is what brings us peace through all of that. And it's like it can't be just like one prayer. There's God makes all your troubles go away and life is better. It's got to be a constant relationship with God, because you could easily fall back into that same feeling of depression and things like that. When I was in the hospital, they diagnosed me with anxiety and stuff like that, and that was like, wow, that's not what I ever wanted to have to deal with in my life. Um, and and speaking to that, like we were talking before, it'd be so easy for me to have been in that vulnerable position to hear a song like this and feel so just excuse me, so justified in my pain, and just bear down on that and never get any resolution, never get any help, and everything's just negative, everything's just low. And when in reality, if I would just look to God and look to His Word, then I would find, well, there's reason to live. There's reason to want to go on, because there is so much more than feeling down, as if there's no purpose. There is so much more to life than just simply feeling sorry for yourself and feeling as though everybody hates me, nobody loves me, and that type of response.
I appreciate it. It's a really good place to bring this to. I mentioned about the podcast because I think that might be something, if you're not really into it already, you might want to consider working into. I think, especially if you find you a partner, somebody to do it with, I think you might be good at that.
Yeah,
So,
we'll definitely think about it.
all right. Well, I appreciate you joining me for this. We'll go ahead and I will record a closing statement because I'll see what we do next. But I appreciate you joining for me. Blah, blah. Let me try again. I
Yeah,
appreciate you joining me for this. I really appreciate the insight you brought into it. You did such a good job on it. I really think if people will give time to watch it, it'll help them understand what the danger of the modern contemporary movement is, as well as depression and these other things, and the need to talk to somebody. So,
right.
because of that, I do want to say this. If you're someone who struggles with depression, you struggle with any of these kind of feelings, if you're somebody who struggles with the temptation towards homosexuality, transgender, those kind of things, I want to help you. I would be glad to help you. Brother Klein would be glad to help you, be glad to talk to you. Any number of pastors would be glad to talk to you. The thing is, you have to understand that just because somebody disagrees with you doesn't mean they're not on your side. I may disagree as a pastor with people a lot. There's going to be
Yeah,
times where I tell them something they're doing is wrong, it's not healthy for them, it's destructive. That doesn't mean that I'm against them. It means I'm
yeah,
against the destructive behavior.
yeah,
So just because I disagree with you about something doesn't mean you can't talk to me.
yeah,
So if you're struggling with something of this nature, you can get in touch with me. I'll volunteer Brother Klein. I'm sure he's willing to do that as well. And he's testified and shared about his own experiences, his going through so much with his medical issues that he's faced and everything. If you're struggling in that area, I know he'd be glad to talk to you and try to help you. So reach out to me or him. If you don't have his contact and you want to get in touch with him, then contact me and I'll get you in touch with him. Same thing. If you want to talk to me and you don't have it, but you have his, get in touch with him. He'll still put you in touch with me. And
yeah,
I'll do my best to make time for you. I'm in Belgium, but I help people around the world with stuff. So as long as you're not asking me for money, I'll do my best to help you.
yeah.
I have to put that in there because I get
Definitely got
50
to put
emails a
that.
day. No. I get
Yeah,
50 emails a day for money. But
yeah,
people who actually want help, tell me in your message when you send it to me that you want something, you want help with something, and be upfront with me because I do get a lot of messages every day, people wanting stuff, and when I respond, it's usually money. So if you don't tell me up front, I'm not going to be as quick to answer you.
right.
But just be upfront with me, write me a message, let me know what's going on, and I'll do my best to try to help you.
Yeah, and let me say this to the whole idea of being offended. I remember some of the best help I've gotten, and I try not to be offensive when I talk to people. I try to be empathetic and understanding where they're coming from. But some of the best advice I've gotten from people has been blunt and taken offensively the first time I heard it. I remember when I was at a very, very vulnerable place in my life when I was in the hospital, because I had just gotten through a period where I had um, relapsed again, and I've been trying to get off of the ventilator because I've been on the ventilator. As you can see, I still have a trach and things like that, but I'm off the ventilator. But I'd been feeling so depressed, and my pastor had come in, and he had been, he felt, like he just wants to give up. He just wants to give up, and he just sternly told me, "Abe, you have to find a reason to go on. You can't let this kill you. You can't stay down like this." Excuse me. And he said, "You have to find a reason to go on. You can't just stay like this, because, you know, God can bring you through this. He's able to help you. And he said he left. He felt bad that he was that straightforward with me. But I took what he said and I thought, yeah, I've got to find a reason to go on. There's more to life than just feeling sorry for yourself and having to think that, you know what, if this is my life, I'm going to have to learn to live with it. And if God's able to help me, then to God be the glory. And that for me was like a turning point for me when I was in the hospital. Was that now I'm not encouraging people to go out and try to be that mean, stern person. Obviously, you need to try to have some understanding and meekness and stuff like that. But um, if you find that you're offended by what's said, take a moment and think about it. Don't just immediately write it off, because those kinds of what they're telling you, if their heart is genuinely in the right place, can be very helpful and can really help you. It's helped me. It's helped other people that I've known, and yeah, and especially you just have to find a reason to go on, because there's life is precious, and there's people that wish they had the opportunities that you might have, or and so forth. But definitely, always, definitely, if a person definitely wants to help you, try to at least consider what they're saying, because it might actually help you. So that's all I'd say about that.
I really appreciate that. Actually, I think I remember the time period that you're talking about, because I believe I reached out to you in that time period as well. The Revises, I think it told me about what you were going through, and so at the time I was reaching out to you, and I remember talking with you some. It's been a little while though, so
Yeah.
but I appreciate that. It's encouraging to hear the testimony of it.
Okay.
So we'll go ahead and close with that. I think it's a very poignant and strong place to close out at. And I think it'll help a lot of people if you'll actually give it the thought of what he's saying. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for being a part of it. I hope that it's a help and encouragement to you. And again, be sure to contact us if you need something. If you want more help with things like this, then we'll see as Brother Klein maybe starts his own podcast here. We'll advertise that for you in the near future and tell you where to find that. But for us, if you want more things from us, then like and subscribe, depending on wherever you're at. If you're YouTube, subscribe, Facebook, follow, whatever you got to do. But we put out stuff like this all the time. So be sure. I make these things because I want to help people. And if you want to be a part of that, then that's how you do it. All right. Thank you for that. And we'll go ahead and close out.